The moment they disappear. They didn't block you, they didn't curse you out, they didn't even leave a final message. They just disappeared. Have you ever woken up and felt a sudden emptiness, as if someone had quietly erased themselves from your life while you were sleeping? If that person was a Scorpio, you probably already know when they go silent, it's not by accident, it's not impulsive, it's not emotional, it's surgical, it's psychic, and it's permanent. There's something about a Scorpio's absence that hits harder than any breakup text. Because they don't just leave a relationship, they remove their soul from the equation, and you're left asking the question that haunts most people long after the goodbye. What did I do? But here's the real Scorpio twist. They were already fading before you ever noticed. They had already pulled away. They had already grieved the loss while smiling at your jokes, while holding your hand, while you thought everything was still fine. Because Scorpio doesn't vanish when they're angry. They vanish when they're done. Done hoping, done explaining, done trusting. In today's hyper-connected world where people post breakups on social media and send angry paragraphs over text, a Scorpio's quiet exit feels ancient, final, unforgiving. But it's not about punishment, it's about self-protection. It's about energy. It's about preserving something sacred within themselves that you may have unknowingly damaged. And now the silence is your teacher. You replay every moment, you reread every message, you search for the exact second when things shifted. But by the time you realize the mistake, they've already rewritten the story without you in it. So what are the 3 big mistakes that push a Scorpio to make this final soul-level decision? What small choices become unforgivable to a sign that values loyalty and emotional integrity above all else? And most importantly, have you already made one of them? Let's go deeper. Let's talk about the 3 mistakes that make Scorpio quietly disappear forever. Mistake 1. You broke the sacred trust. Scorpios don't give trust, they forge it through fire and shadow. And once it's broken, you don't just lose them, you lose access to a dimension of love most people never even get close to. You may not even remember what you said, but they do. The exact words, the tone, the shift in your energy. Because while you were thinking it's no big deal, Scorpio was watching your soul crack. Let me tell you about Kayla, a Scorpio from Chicago. Tough on the outside, deep as the ocean inside. She had a friend named Bra, someone she considered a sister. They had late-night talks, shared their worst heartbreaks, and swore they'd never betray each other. One night at a party, Bri told someone else about something Kayla had said in confidence, just a small thing. Nothing too personal, just careless. Bri never even realized the damage, but Kayla felt it in her spine. It wasn't the words that broke her, it was the violation of the unspoken code. She didn't call Bri out, she didn't start drama, she just let go. The texts slowed down, the vibe went cold, and within a few weeks, Bri was talking to a ghost who used to be her best friend. This is the core of Scorpio's loyalty. They don't trust easily, but when they do, they let you into their underworld, into their pain, into their childhood wounds, into the places most people keep locked away for life. When they trust you, it's like handing you their shadow and asking, will you still love me if I show you everything? So when you take that trust and treat it lightly, share it, mock it, ignore it, you shatter something sacred. And Scorpio doesn't rebuild what was sacred, they bury it. You might think, but I apologized, I didn't mean to hurt them. Scorpio knows, but that's not the point. For them, it's not about intent, it's about impact. It's about energy, and you shifted the entire frequency of your connection. Once they feel that breach, even once they never look at you the same again. In American culture, we often talk about second chances as a sign of maturity. We romanticize forgiveness. We're told if someone walks away that easily, they never really cared. But with Scorpio, it's the opposite. They walked away because they cared too deeply, and you proved you couldn't be trusted with that depth. You'll never hear a Scorpio say you crossed the line. They won't lecture you. They won't explain, because when Scorpio senses betrayal, they respond with silence, not as punishment, but as closure. And here's the part that hurts the most. You won't get a warning. You won't get a second chance. You'll just realize one day, they're not there. Not online, not texting back, not looking at you the way they used to. They disappeared and took your access to their soul with them. Life lesson 1. When someone shows you their scars, that's sacred. When a Scorpio does it, it's spiritual. Break that trust and you don't lose a person, you lose an entire universe. With Scorpio, silence isn't passive-aggressive, it's prophetic. Mistake number 2, you played with their emotions. Scorpio doesn't fear love, they fear dishonesty masquerading as affection. If love is a game to you, they'll fold without flinching, because they weren't playing in the first place. Let's be real, modern love, especially in America, has become a game board. Who texts back slower? Who cares less? Who can pretend better? There's even a name for it now, strategic detachment. We call it protecting your peace. But what you're really doing is testing someone's soul with your fear. And when you try that with Scorpio, you don't spark curiosity, you trigger retreat. Take the story of Miles and Zoe. Zoe. A Scorpio woman was intense in the best way. She remembered tiny details. She made eye contact like she saw through lifetimes. And she never said I love you unless she meant it from the bone. Miles liked her, but he wasn't used to someone that real. So like most people raised in the age of dating apps, he tried to slow it down. He pulled back, delayed his replies, made vague comments like, I just don't want to get too deep too fast, you know. But what he didn't know was this: Scorpio doesn't do shallow. You're either swimming in the deep or sitting on the shore. There's no halfway. Zoe felt every shift in his energy. She noticed the pauses, the emotional calculations. She didn't confront, didn't cling, didn't cry. She just went quiet. To Scorpio, emotional games are vibrational betrayal. Even if you never lie, the performance is the sin. Because here's the cosmic truth. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, and the underworld. This means they're not just looking for love. They're looking for alchemical union. So when you flirt just to feel wanted, when you ghost just to feel powerful, when you fake vulnerability just to test how much they care, what you're really doing is telling them, I don't honor the temple of your heart. And Scorpio hears that, not with ears, but with energy. They won't argue. They won't ask you to try harder, because Scorpio doesn't ask to be loved properly. They just leave. That's what happened to Miles. One day he looked up and realized Zoe wasn't around anymore. No big exit, no explosion, just an energetic vanishing. He reached out weeks later asking, "Can we talk?" She answered with the quietest truth. "I felt what you were doing. I don't play with feelings like that." That was it. Conversation over, connection erased. Because to a Scorpio, once emotional integrity is violated, the bond is dead, no resurrection. In American relationships, people often mistake Scorpio's silence for weakness, but in reality, it's their final form of power. When a Scorpio withdraws emotionally, they're not abandoning you, they're returning to themselves. And when that door shuts, you'll hear the echo for years. Life lesson 2. If you need to test someone's emotions to feel secure, you're not ready for Scorpio. With them, love isn't theater. It's ritual, it's holy, it's all in. Play games and you'll be playing alone. Mistake number 3. You disrespected their depth. Scorpios aren't intense for show. They're intense because they live in emotional places most people are terrified to enter. So, when you dismiss their depth, you're not just misunderstanding them, you're insulting the very core of who they are. Let's talk about a mistake that doesn't always look like a mistake. You didn't lie, you didn't cheat, you didn't scream, but you mocked their silence. You said they were too sensitive. You laughed when they needed time alone. You rolled your eyes when they spoke about dreams, shadows, or energy. That's how you lost them. Scorpios aren't light-hearted companions. They are soul-driven, spiritually wired beings. They feel more, see more, sense more. And when you treat that sensitivity as a flaw instead of a gift, they don't fight back. They retreat like a tide pulling back into the abyss. Take Drew, a Scorpio man who fell hard for someone named Kara. She was bright, spontaneous, funny, everything he thought would balance his own seriousness. But every time Drew tried to share something vulnerable, a childhood wound, a recurring dream, a gut feeling, Kara would laugh it off or change the subject. One night he told her something deeply personal. "I sometimes dream of water flooding my house when I feel emotionally overwhelmed." She laughed and said, "That's so dramatic. You read too many astrology blogs." That was the night he knew he would never open his soul to her again. Here's the truth. Scorpio doesn't need you to understand everything about them, but they do need you to respect the layers. When you tell a Scorpio, "You overthink everything. You're too intense. Why can't you just let things go?" what they hear is, "Your truth is too much for me. Your pain is inconvenient. Your spiritual nature makes me uncomfortable." And once they hear that, even once they pull away, not just emotionally but spiritually, because Scorpio doesn't want a surface-level connection, they want to meet you in the underworld and rise with you from it. This is what most people never get. To love a Scorpio is to witness emotional alchemy. It's shadow work. It's late-night conversations that shake your worldview. It's silence that speaks louder than 1,000 explanations. It's not easy, but it's real. And it's rare. So when you treat their depth like a flaw, you're not only proving you don't belong in their world, you're proving you're not ready for real love. In American culture, people often chase fun fast and fleeting, but Scorpio is timeless. They aren't impressed by surface sparkle. They're drawn to what's buried beneath. If you can't meet them there in the truth, in the shadow, in the stillness, you will be left behind. Not loudly, not cruelly, but completely. Life lesson 3. Depth isn't dangerous, it's divine. And if you treat a Scorpio soul like it's too much, don't be surprised when they decide you're not enough. With Scorpio, you don't just lose access to a person, you lose access to a sacred dimension of love most people never touch in this lifetime. Final part, the vanishing and life lessons. Scorpio doesn't walk away in anger, they disappear in realization. The moment they sense the energy is no longer sacred, they choose absence over explanation. And by then, it's already too late. You'll feel it long after the conversations stop. You'll feel it when their name flashes in your memory, but not on your phone. You'll feel it when you sit in silence, finally understanding how their silence was never empty. It was everything. Because, here's the truth. One most people realize too late. Scorpio doesn't just leave a room, they evacuate their energy. They take their soul with them. And the space they once held becomes haunted, not by ghosts, but by the version of you they used to love. So let's be clear, if you broke their trust, they didn't argue, they just stopped offering truth. If you played with their emotions, they didn't explode, they just unplugged their heart from yours. If you mocked their depth, they didn't correct you, they simply decided you weren't meant to hold it. And now, you wonder why they left. But really they were already gone the moment you stopped seeing them. Not just their face or body or status, but the soul beneath it all. Some people say Scorpio is too dramatic, too secretive, too intense. But ask anyone who's ever truly been loved by one, and they'll tell you, I've never felt more seen, more challenged, more spiritually alive, and more haunted by their absence. Life lessons summary. Lesson 1. Trust is sacred. If a Scorpio gives you access to their inner world, treat it like a vow, not a transaction. Lesson 2. Emotion isn't a game. Never test someone who already sees beyond your performance. Lesson 3. Depth is a divine invitation. If you can't meet them at soul level, don't expect to stay in their orbit. Scorpio doesn't disappear to punish. They disappear to protect themselves, their peace, their soul. So if you've ever felt a Scorpio's silence, don't take it lightly, because that silence was the sound of their final truth. If you've ever been left wondering why a Scorpio disappeared from your life, or if you are the Scorpio who had no choice but to go silent, share your story in the comments. There's power in speaking what others are too afraid to face. And if this message stirred something in you, subscribe now to the Path to Buddha Wisdom, because this isn't just a channel, it's a space for those who feel deeply, love fiercely, and walk the hidden paths of truth.